fantastic. This is GT racing right now.
He's got traction, he's got rhythm, both of them! Maloney!
Oh, he's taken Anderson! Anderson's up to
Oh my god! Oh. Big crash! Oh my goodness, half the field's gonna get rolled!
This is very close. These guys are want to make their way through the field very quickly. Oh, here we go! Oh no! That's massive! This is it! This is over! I can't believe this! Oh my god!
God, what?
Moments like these are about the countdown to the end of the season. The start of the second half of any season is about a situation. Where do you place yourself? Where do you push forward? Where do you find the abilities that are needed? Welcome to the Hungaroring. Welcome to round 7 of 12 of the iRacing Grand Prix Series. And in the first championship of the Mercedes era, this could be a huge turning point for the season. I'm Jake Sperry here at SimSpeed TV, joined alongside by Brad Wingard, as per usual, as we find ourselves today around this incredible circuit, born out of the 80s and bringing itself to life time and time again. You look at this place, Brad, and it is an absolute masterstroke of technical prowess. You have to be alert, you have to be precise through a lot of these corners, but crucially, you need to qualify well. This is a track position circuit.
Yeah, it absolutely is. That middle section from turn 4 to turn 11 is not impossible to pass, but it is excruciatingly difficult. A lot of medium speed corners after that turn 6-7 chicane, and like you said, track position to get out of that dirty area is absolutely crucial.
There's only been 2 major revisions on this circuit. The run from 11 to 13 was straightened out to be a 90-degree right-hander. And then, of course, the run down to turn number 1 was extended a number of years ago to give more of an overtaking opportunity through 1 and in towards turn number 2. But this is a championship which really hangs on a very fine edge. It is best 8 out of 12 that will score at the end, but this is how the standings look. No drop rounds, round 6 of the championship. Tom Volstra, 50 points clear of Matteo Ugolotti in second. Jorge Martinez currently holding up third position with the likes of Ben Fuller, Tamas Simon, and Xabi Rose. They're in 6th position overall. Down at the bottom of that standings, Kazuki Umeshima, after his win last week, puts himself up into 10th position, but let's flick the switch, shall we? Let's put 2 drop rounds in. We're at the halfway stage, just finished, and it's all changed. Xabi Rose, 1 point clear at the top from Tamas Simon, with Matteo Ugolotti in 3rd position overall out there at this stage. The likes of Emil Bernstorff, Adam Gleeson, Jacob Reed, 8th, 9th, and 10th. Really what you can say, Brad, is that these drop rounds, your best 8 scores, they change absolutely everything.
Yeah, they absolutely do, and consistency is key, especially in a championship that's as tightly fought as this one. And Xavi Rose and Tamas Simon showing that to perfection. Matteo Ugolotti and Ben Fuller are still there, only about 50 points behind apiece, but that gap swings so much if you have nice consistent results rather than one hit and one miss.
Well, we'll see how those consistent results go through the qualifying gauntlet that is out here today, and we've already got some big names up on the board, and most of the times are pretty much in at this stage. A couple drivers still need to set a time. One of them is the number 5 machine of Oliver Stepanov, who is not on these lists, jumped in a little bit late to the series, but crucially will be jumping up through the table late on as things go by. But there he is, moving through the middle sector. Currently, it's Andreas Henkel who's got himself the fastest time of anyone. He's 4/10 clear of the rest of the field through qualifying, which is magnificent from the pro stripe. As now, here comes Stepanov through turn number 12 into 13. Always difficult to check as you get yourself through this long left-hander. Very easy to spin up the rear tyres as you try and put the power down through that flat left-hander. And now into the right of 14. Get it on as early as you can. Drive over to the line with DRS. It's a 13.668, and it's good enough for the front row of the grid. So a huge lap from Oliver Stepanov, and a huge qualifying has pretty much put itself into play. The driver you can see out on screen here, Jorge Martin, is the number one. He is unable to set a time. He'll be firstly, too far away from home, but secondly, he also has invalidated his second lap of time, Brad, so he can't set another time quicker than 5th place.
Yeah, I've been seeing quite a few people do that. A lot of guys really struggling trying to maximize their attack on their qualifying runs. A lot of 1Xs off tracks and contact with the barrier, so not at all surprised, even if he is the number one car, that just law of averages means he'd probably have his fair share of 1Xs too, and still might as well use that time to get a bit of practice in.
And practice then is done, so we'll be heading over to the starting grid, and it will look a little bit as follows. We've got a few things here and there, so we can bring that down and bring that back up again. We can have an accurate grid here today from this wonderful circuit. Andreas Henkel then will be on pole position then for this one. We won't be able to do that, but it will be Oliver Stepanov who will be lining up alongside then in second position. Tamas Simon and Tom Volstra will be third and fourth. You can see it like this, with Jorge Martinez fifth and Matteo Calistani sixth. You've got six different countries, I should say, in the top six. Danilo Sanfilippo and Jacob Reed will be on row 4 of the grid, as Anthony Cat and Remy Garcia will round out the top 10 here today at the Hungaroring. Moving down, Kent Nielsen and Jacob Swiderski will have row 6 with Jorge Montañez and Øyvind Haugland there, the Norwegian, in 14th position. Jordan Johnson will have Gennady Kalashnikov for company. He struggled a little bit today in qualifying, as you've got Northern Motta and Ben Horrell there on row 9 of the grid. Row 10, two surprising names down here, Adam Webb and Thomas Veek. You'd expect them to be a little bit up the order as we move into the final 7 drivers. Lewis Holden, Jacob Oberslack, Cedric Beal struggling in qualifying today, Tamas Shane, Colin Bell, Stefan Flash, and Martin Brandborg unable to set a time in qualifying. He will start from the back of the field in the number 26 machine, but the challenge is very much set. Tactics already in the view. There was an expectancy that maybe pit stops might have to be made today at the very high tyre intensive circuit that this Hungaroring is. 5 drivers are on the hard compound tyres. Everyone else is on the mediums here today, and it is going to be a real challenge to put this into perspective. Green flag in the air, and we're underway, and it's a struggling start for Andreas Henkel. He gets a massive amount of wheel spin. He gets swamped on the run towards turn number 1, and you can see here on this defence, it is Stepanov defending Tamas Simon, the hometown boy, as he holds on to second position. Stepanov leads on the run then into turn number 2. Bolstra's done okay off at the start, and as they pile in a bit of side-by-side, Jacob Reed, and off goes one of the Sanfilippos.
Yeah, that's what you get at a track like this. Managing to come back on, think, oh, there's big contact there up ahead. I don't know who that was, but that was huge contact.
Yeah, that was Jacob Swiderski in all sorts of trouble here, and he's still having to fight. There about 3 wide going into turn number 3, and on the exit, Swiderski running into Ben Horrell, who was aggressive around the outside. He's done well. They go through chicane then for the first time, and you can see how the anti-cut curb really doesn't help anyone as they go through. And again, Swiderski in trouble. Look at that, freezing around the outside there. That in the end was Adam Webb getting it done. You can see now that the slow down penalties, they hurt a lot on the opening lap. You can really drop back through the field, and it's so congested. These cars are very long as well, which makes overtaking a lot more difficult. Swiderski off the road again, and that in the wall is Oliver Stepanov. His race is done after a lap.
That's not exactly what he would want, trying to force his way up the standings, and that was an error all on his own. Yeah, such a small error that cost him big time. We've seen him come around turn 13 now, still leading at this point. It was a very, very starting good opening lap, but he just catches the tyres, and yeah, there's nothing we can really do there.
No, he just got a little bit too greedy going into turn 14. His race is over. There are no fast repairs here. The iRacing Grand Prix Series, day done. Tamas Simon leads. He said he'll be going for a no-stop. He expects others to go for a one-stop. Jacob Reed, though, in the number 11 car on screen right now, up 1 spot so far in this race. He'll have Anthony Cat just in front of him, and Anthony Cat probably made one of the best starts in this race, were it not for the fact that Ben Horrell's first lap here, Brad, has gone from 18th to 10th.
Yeah, a couple of slowdowns and people running wide, and that crash for Oliver Stepanov definitely helping that. But who says you can't pass it the Hungaroring? He's going for another one now into turn 13. As Rennie Garcia runs wide.
Certainly
But
does.
we're making in 2 laps.
Yeah, exactly, and this is going to put Gennady Kalashnikov into play here. And on lap 3, you get the drag reduction system wide open, moving down to the inside, trying to pick this move apart. And on the brakes, he's got it sorted. Kalashnikov through on Remy Garcia and picking up another position. That moves him up then into 10th place and up 6 on his own at this point in time. Up 9 now, you can see Ben Horrell he'll have a lot of chasing to do to get to Kent Nielsen in the yellow machine just in front of him. So that's the work that needs to be done. But at the front, this is crucial. 2 cars clear. Simon and Henkel are the 2 that are away. Tom Volstra about a second back, 1.6. And he's now got a lot of work to stay in this race. And just like that, 1 second broken as Henkel loses out to Tamas Simon. Clearly Henkel good on 1 lap, but maybe race pace might be a little different.
Yeah, and this is a track where consistent lap times can and probably will win you the race because, yeah, it's difficult to pass through that middle sector, but if you're inconsistent, people are going to use that to their advantage. Get a nice draft down towards turn 12 and be into their RS zone for the main straight.
So that would indicate to me that Remy Garcia may have jumped the start in this race. So that is huge in terms of what he wants. He does have a flag against his name, and that's not ideal at all in terms of the way that he wants this to be done. So he's going to be down in the pits then. He's going to be stopped in the box. There'll be a long wait before he gets himself back out and going again. Racing, though, continues out here at the Hungaroring, up the hill towards turn number 4. And you can see right now it is one Mr. Anthony Catt against Jacob Reed. Kent Nielsen just behind. This is 6th, 7th and 8th positions right now out there at the moment. And you can say that if there's anyone who is more versed on the medium compound tyre than anyone when it comes to racing in formula-style vehicles like these on iRacing, Brad, it's Anthony Catt.
Yeah, he's very experienced driver, and I guess we kind of expect that in a series like this, but you have all the guys running the medium tyres, which is near enough everyone. He's probably one of the most experienced drivers, and if he can manage his tyres in the first third of this race, he's going to be in a much better position than those who are charging off in front of him and maybe not looking after them quite as well.
It's going to be a management game today. As you can see, the battle for 9th position behind Ben Horrell. You've got Gennady Kalashnikov, Danilo Sanfilippo, who will have to recover through the field. Jorge Montañez is there, along with Jordan Johnson, the American there, in the number 16 machine as he runs to turn number 2. You can always use the outside line at turn 2 because the track does aggressively fall away and it gives you that lunge and inside through the right of turn number 3. Up the hill, this is probably one of the shortest straights, and of course there was that scary accident over a decade ago now that Felipe Massa had back in 2009, of course, which did a lot to change the regulations of safety in formula-style vehicles like these, and that's why you can see out there on these cars, they have the Halo device. It's the first real cars out there in iRacing that have the Halo device. Of course, there were cars that had protection devices in iRacing before that, Brad, but when it came to IndyCar, they like to use the shield.
Yeah, and a lot of people didn't like the screen, but I'm quite a fan of it. But then again, a lot of people didn't like the Halo either, but it does its job, and once we've had it for a while, you don't even notice it. So definitely not something to complain about, but definitely doesn't take away from the racing at all.
And wouldn't you say, Brad, that it's an advantage here on iRacing that you do have that toggle ability where you don't have to stare, I would say, around the Halo device. You can actually make it ethereal and see through it.
Yeah, it's definitely a bonus to be able to have that as well, because if you're on a single screen like I and a lot of other people are, it's so difficult to see around. If you're in VR, not so much of an issue, but on a static screen, it's so difficult. And thankfully, iRacing decided to add that because it just makes it so much better to drive.
That's Adam Webb, who's dropped a couple of positions here. Let's see what's happened down into turn number 1, because it looks like a mistake on the exit which has caught him out. So he'll be on the brakes, looking to try and get that power down early. It's not a case of a natural power goes. You can see he's got the DRS flap open as he puts the power down. He wants to do that because that DRS zone also works through turn number 2. He still has to hold around the outside, by the way, against Mr. Lewis Holden, but he's able to do that. But you can see he's there third, flipping into 4th gear, but because he doesn't have the downforce because the DRS flap's open, he's spinning towards the inside.
Yeah, it's so easy to do. These cars put out so much downforce, but then you change it just slightly, whether that be DRS or a little bit of damage, and the whole balance changes. Especially out of a corner like turn 1 that progressively, the exit kind of falls away from you to give you that extra space, and so you're still turning. If you do that with power and DRS, you're in for a bad time.
They could see the first little look from Jacob Reed inside. Doesn't quite manifest there with Anthony Catt, who always had it covered, gave the room on the inside, would have got the call from the iRacing spotter to say car inside as he would have turned into the corner, and that is an advantage that you can work with here in the iRacing system, that everyone pretty much does run around with a spotter. It is invaluable information to have when you're out there racing. But Brad, you'd say at the same time, if you just stick a nose up the inside and you hear car inside, this is the sort of car where if you make contact, you know, your day's going to pretty much end. So drivers are more liable to give you the room.
Yeah, and I think that aids with the racing as well. We've seen a couple of incidents like last week at Imola, but they were majority due to netcode or other factors outside of the drivers themselves. And I think that's something that the fragile nature of these cars gives to the racing, is people are cautious. You can't bang doors like you can in an Audi RS3 and kind of get away with it. You have to really pick your moments, and it's just authentic and makes it better racing.
Absolutely, and these aren't the sort of Formula 1 style battles where you dive from about 3 light years down the inside and hope nobody goes there. This is the sort of racing where you have to be out there, you have to be calculated with the way that you make those moves. As we stay with this battle going on then for what is going to be 6th position as they run up to the very top of the circuit here. The highest point is this chicane, the right and the left. And then you've got to be very much there through this middle sector of the lap. Now, this is always going to make life very difficult, and you need to be brave through a lot of these corners to be able to stick in and stay with a car that's in front of you. Dirty air effect is very prevalent when you're in 4th, 5th, 6th gears in this machine. And when you're trying to stay within that range, you're effectively spending the entirety of this final sector and the opportunities that come along with these 2 very difficult 180-degree switchback corners. Try and say, well, I'm back in range and I'm available to attack again.
Yeah, and that's one of the beautiful things about this track, is it just, the difference between sectors 2 and sector 3 are pretty substantial in the way the racing happens and the way the track layout runs, because yeah, that last sector is so quick that you can be in range, but you need to be able to stick there through that middle section. And it's a fantastic bit of racetrack when you're the lead car in a pack and you don't have the dirty air, especially in a car like this where you can go flat for most of it. But if you're that trailing car, it's just a nightmare.
Absolutely, and speaking of trailing cars, imagine being in the middle of this one here, 9th down to what is 13th position on the road, moving through the chicane. Kalashnikov closer than he's been for a long time, and this is one of the tracks where they did a lot of updating after its initial release. Those anti-cut curbs there at the chicane there, turns 6 and 7, Brad, were jumped in after the first initial build, and that was the sort of look around that chicane where you could actually be aggressive with that. Now you have to be so precise because you're going to be bounding over that in a car which is very, very low on the ground. And if you don't like it in the sim going over that curve, I'll tell you what, in real life, you'd be very sore on the undertray.
Yeah, it definitely would. And it does make it a bit hard to pass through that section, but I guess that's, as we see a move into turn 1, not done yet. You can hold it around the outside if you get the exit, but DRS will go in the favor of Kalishnikov, so gets around the outside, but still move not done yet. Danny Ricciardo's spec around the outside has the inside for turn 3, and finally the move gets done.
And that was well worked by Kalashnikov, and got himself brave down the inside at 1. Couldn't guarantee the move, but he knew exactly what he needed to do. And, well, he managed to get that sorted absolutely fantastically. And now it's his turn to lead the pack as they go through the middle sector then of this lap. Crucial to note, though, the gap at the front here, Simon versus Henkel, has been slowly extending over the opening 10 laps of this race. The gap now is out to 2.6 seconds, just flicking down as they go through this final section of road. Henkel pulling back about a tenth and a half there, but 2.5 seconds here as they cross the line. This is a lot of work, but it's crucially these two against the world, because the drivers behind, Bolstra, Calistani, Martinez, look at them. They're about 5 seconds adrift of all of this, and for the first time, Anthony Cat's under pressure. Here comes Jacob Reed down the inside. He gets himself stopped there, but he can't shut the door on Anthony Cat. Gets a much better drive off of the exit. Reed uses the attack mode on the outside to try and get it sorted through 2. Little locking there from Anthony Cat, and 3 is normally the decisive corner, and decisive it is not. They will go all the way up to turn number 4, but finally Cat yields. He does not want to go sit a 2 wide through turn 4. It's dangerous, even single file.
Yeah, it definitely is. There is the room to take a lot of speed through there, but it is a very, very narrow one-line corner, giving all of that extra runoff on exit. But copy and repeat of that turn 1 move, I think it's one of my favourite passing places on the F1 calendar, because there's so many different lines you can take to both attack and defend your position. And although those 2 overtakes were very similar, the approaches were quite different and the running lines were quite different, and it's just an awesome overtaking spot.
They can see Jorge Montañez on the white-walled hard compound tyres, leading driver of anyone who is out there on the hard. So Montañez bottled up, you would say, in this pack. This might be a huge blessing in disguise for him. We normally talk about how if you're stuck behind drivers, you're going to use your tyres more in comparison to others. What you can say, though, is that if you're stuck in a massive train like this, at a track where it's difficult to overtake, you need about a second a lap's advantage to make an overtake happen, as he slightly overshoots turn 1 and puts himself under pressure from Jordan Johnson, who looks towards the inside and can't find the move. You'd probably say at this stage here, Brad, that Montañez is the sort of driver who's waiting for this all to open up, hopes a couple drivers in front of him pits, and he's able to use the life of the white-walled hard compound tyres.
Yeah, it's not a bad place to be. Like, it's frustrating and you just want to get through because you know at the end of the day you have that tyre advantage. But if you're being held up pace-wise, you can save the tyres, and when you are running the harder compound that is a little bit slower naturally, that's not a bad thing. And even if these guys don't pit, come lap 30 or even 28 of this race, he's going to have a monumental advantage over those around him. And on pace alone, he could possibly make the move. Just depends on how hard those guys in front of him and Jordan Johnson behind are pushing to see if he can really maximise those hard tyres.
Battle here between Holden and Webb, about 0.6 of a second, and it's the same for the battle just in front of them as well. Cedric Beale, who has been very bottled up this race, didn't qualify well, started 23rd, could only laugh as he put the car where he is, but Holden here, just behind's got a really good run here on Adam Webb. He's going to lunge for the inside in towards turn 1, and watch this, Webb takes a deliberate wide line because he wants to be able to attack turn 2. Here's the issue though, it's a double DRS zone. That means if you've got the DRS on the front stretch, you've also got it on the run through turn 2 as well. So that means no chance to come back and attack it. Adam Webb has to stick behind Lewis Holden, gains a place.
Yeah, that was very smart running by Holden as well. He did kind of miss the apex of turn 1, but it worked in his favour because he came out and he kind of checked Webb up coming out of turn 1, and then the DRS kicked in. So he played his card to right and put the car where he needed it to be, even if it wasn't intentionally, and it gave him that little bit of a blockade to help him save that position.
Absolutely, it was a very good save of the position, and he'll now try and focus forward as we watch Danilo Sanfilippo, the Palermo pink, still on the car as they go through the long right then of 14, leading on to the front stretch. And this is where we've seen Ben Horrell be really, really good through that final sector, able to hold off the charge. And the good news for him is that Kalashnikov has actually slightly broken away here from him. That gap is about 1.5 seconds, and then you're not dealing so much with the dirty air as you go through at 1.5 seconds. You're more naturally able to take that line, and it's getting easier, I would say, for Ben Orrell to go out there and defend the position the way that he would want to, taking the lines how he'd want to, taking the corner speeds that he'd want to. And as such, you can see Danilo Sanfilippo has really fallen back over the opening of this lap. The gap now 0.8 of a second, 7 as they go through turn 5.
Yeah, he does lose that DRS train, but that DRS advantage, but anyone can drive fast in a straight line. Having that clean air through the corners, such as these in the middle sector, are really going to help him eke out that gap from behind and just ease a little bit of pressure. He doesn't have to go storming off into the distance, but 0.7 of a second is more than enough to defend into turn 1 and then turn 2. So if he can use that clean air to his advantage through that middle sector, then it helps take some of the defensive pressure off into turn 1.
I'm also interested in the battle going on 4th and 5th position. You can see it here on screen. The two drivers here, Kalastani and Martinez, teammates then at Mag Performance as they are trying to work out what is the best way for them to go forward and construct this race. They have lost time here to Tom Volstra to the tune of about 2.7 seconds in this race, and it's the sort of thing where Martinez is just knocking on the door saying, would you mind, we haven't got Oliver Stepanov anymore, another one of our teammates who joined after his heroics when he managed to join in for this series for the first time. But you look at someone like Martinez, who is very good with tyres, this might just be his sort of race today.
Yeah, definitely could be, because this is only 50% proper Grand Prix distance, but still making those mediums last is quite difficult. And if you've managed to keep them going till here with 1 lap short of halfway, then pace should be good for the second half, but he's not quite close enough to Kalastani to say, hey, buddy old pal, can you scooch out the way so I can come past? Saying that, he does lock up and have a bit of a slide out of turn 1, which helps matters, but you don't want to sacrifice too much time trying to do that switch, because then it becomes redundant, and I don't think he's quite close enough, but also don't want to burn through the tyres.
Absolutely, and we need to talk about tyres here as we are just about reaching the halfway stage of this race, because it has been something over the last couple of weeks where drivers late on in races lose anywhere upwards of a second a lap, 2 seconds a lap as they go through, and that's mainly because drivers are actually popping their tyres at the very ends of races. It's a scary prospect to have. It's not as dramatic as what you'd normally see, but what you do have to note is if you are popping that tyre and you've got nothing to fight back with, that's it, that's your race. You know, you've driven 32, 33 laps to have your tyre pop. That's not exactly the way that you want to go out there and win an event. You've got to go out there and drive well within the limit, and this is what you're seeing, a new car, new formulas, and it's really going to take, especially with these half-race distances, a driving style of being very conservative on the tyres that's going to get you home and is going to get you there with great results.
And that's exactly what we saw last week. Ben Fuller losing that win because he pushed the tyres too early and then didn't have anything to fight back because his tyre just burst on the final lap. So he managed to hold position, but he was lucky in doing that, in all honesty, because it could have been a couple of spots if the field was a bit closer towards the end of the race. And you do have to look after the tyres because tyre degradation here is higher than it was at Imola. Like, that's a very fast track with a lot of medium speed corners, but the radius on these ones are a lot tighter, so you're degrading the tyres, or degrading the tyres a lot more on a track like this. And that's the last thing any of these guys want, is, like you said, to get to lap 33 and the tyres say, nah, I'm out.
It's so easy to do. If you run out of tyre life, you're going to be in so much trouble around here, because these corners hurt, and they hurt quite a lot out there on circuit. They stay, though, with this battle going on. This is the battle for 10th, 11th, 12th and 13th positions out there on circuit. Danilo Sanfilippo trying to work out if he can make an overtake on Ben Horrell. Let's look, though, at the Virtual Racing School replay here for a quick moment. This is going down through turn 2 to turn 3. Colin Bell getting a bit too aggressive out in the grass, and that is how quickly your race can be over here in iRacing. Just a little bit too much through turn 2, gets the grass, rears into the wall, car's written off.
And it's so easy to do in these sort of cars with this much power. Like, they have a lot of grip, so much so that it feels like they actually have traction control or something in them because they've got so much downforce. But downforce is kind of useless when it's not on a bitumen surface and it's on the grass, and that's how you light the rears up, just like that, and you're in the fence. But this is Cedric Bill being hounded by Lewis Holden. Yeah.
Lewis Holden's done really well here. He's definitely had pace after overtaking Adam Webb. Is all over the former pro striping. Cedric Beale found himself in DIGPC, of course, which was last year and at the back end of last year as well. So definitely a driver with a lot of reputation as he goes through. You can see Beale on the hard compound tyres looks at it and says, well, I don't really think I'm going to make much of it. But you can see he's 38 seconds right now off of the race lead. And this is the sort of track you don't want to be losing a lot of time on here relative to the leaders, because a lap is so quick. It's about 75 seconds around this place. You look at this place and go, well, I'm already 2/3 of a lap behind the race leaders, and I am very primed to be lapped come the end. That's the last thing that Cedric Beale's wanting to be looking at here in this one.
Yeah, absolutely is, but because he is on those hard tyres, it factors in a little bit. It's not everything. As pass out of turn 1, nearly shuts the door very well though. I haven't seen that line taken today, so I enjoyed that little bit of fighter pilot dogfighting through turn 1 and turn 2. But as I was saying, we'll get a replay of that one now.
Certainly will. And this was Stefan Flash trying to defend against Tamas Shane. Shane very much got this sorted here. Down the inside into one, as easy as you like, but you always got to try and get that setback going. Even if you have the DRS, you can see they both had it as they crossed through. That was very, very dicey as they went into turn number 2. And that's one of the things, you're always fighting for the inside line into a corner like turn 2. And it's one of the circuits, the very few things we look at our race leader right now, Tamas Simon, absolutely flying out through these sectors of track and leading clearly. Now here's the first pit stop, so we'll flick to this. Adam Webb, with 15 laps to go, is diving into the pits. That is bold, to say the very least, and if that is any indication, I think a lot of drivers might be diving in between now and the end of this race.
Yeah, they absolutely could. We did hear from the community that it was very touch and go trying to make these tyres last to the end. So I doubt that's going to be the last pit stop, or the only pit stop that we'll see. If it is, I'll find a hat and eat it. Actually, no, I won't say that. But this is where people like Cedric Bill, who are running the hard tyre, think, okay, people are pitting. They start to lick their chops and get all excited because they don't have to. So that's one of my favourite things about commentating and watching this series, is even though it's not massively long enough for strategy to be a part, it can be just on tyre choice alone at the start of the race.
Closest we've seen Jorge Martinez against Matteo Calistani. The two teammates, they've already looked at this and gone, what do we need to do? That was the first real look down the inside into turn number 1. Didn't work for Martinez at that point in time. But what he does know is that he's got to get a hurry up on right now. Look in the back of shot. That's Jacob Reed. He's running faster than these two. Took half a second out of Calistani on that last lap. Gap's 1.8.
Yeah, that's the problem running together, is should we let driver A go or driver B go, but then you've got driver X from the other team catching you at a rate of knots, and you don't want to trip over each other trying to let someone go to break away, but you also don't want to both lose positions because you've had a surprise attack from someone who you didn't really think was a factor.
Absolutely, and you see it time and again, but you get that catch-22 of I don't want to be considered an inferior teammate by relinquishing the better position on the road. And that has been often the question on what team orders are as we look a little bit further back. It's Kalashnikov now who's trying to attack Kent Nielsen here for 8th position. Nielsen's had a very lonely race. Here comes Kalashnikov, but he's not quite there as the natural line works for Kent Nielsen. He'll hold on for at least one lap more.
And that's what we were talking about with that fragile nature of these cars. Is any other car you probably could send it in and try and make that move stick, but because of the nature of these cars, you just don't want to, because any bit of contact and your race is pretty much done. So now Kalashnikov needs to reset and save that battery and try again. He's still close, 0.2 of a second going through the chicane. So he's not out of it by any stretch of the means. He's just got to get his head back.
Certainly does, and you can see him right now as he runs through. He's definitely in range. He definitely feels confident right now, and it's been a great drive here from Gennady, who started 16th position in this race, up trying to get to 8th. But you can see now Jacob Reed, he's starting to get there here with the drives in front. No DRS this time by 9/10 of a second he went through, so he must have gained about 2/10 making that run through. But they're starting to look in front there again. Martinez just showing the nose, showing the hand against Kalastani. They're fighting teammates. You're going to have to earn this one. And speaking of earning it, look at this melee on the back. Danilo Sanfilippo, mirrors full of Montañez. And we talked about this. The hard compound tyre starting to come into its own element. It's a great fight back from Danilo here as he works on the outside, turns inside, but he lifts off of it. He says, I'm beaten against Montañez. And suddenly, that almost opened the door up for Jordan Johnson to try and find a way through. And he attacks on the exit. They come together. Both of them in trouble. And both of them find major contacts they went through. Johnson was trying the up and under and just lost the rears.
Yeah, I was going to say I'm surprised they didn't make contact because that was so close, and just as I had that thought, they did. And yeah, that medium tyre coming into a DRS also not helping, but Sanfilippo is very much out of this race now. Very close through there, and then turn 3 very close. A little bit of AstroTurf, and 2 becomes 1, and not in the way we wanted it to.
Danilo's pulled the car over. His race is done, and you're going to see this right now. It's just as he turns in, he's a little too aggressive, catches the grass on the inside, unsettles the car. He does catch it, but he's run out of road at that point. Danilo Sanfilippo's already off the track at that point on the outside of 3, trying to leave as much space as possible, but you know, there's not much you can do in that situation. It's Jordan Johnson's mistake, and ultimately that is race done. But race battling continues out there for 4th, for 5th, for 6th position. Now into the pits will come Jordan Johnson. No surprises there. He would have lit up the tyres. He would probably have some damage to the front wing, and he will have to get a stop sorted out there on circuit. So he knows what he's got to do moving into the next stages. But for now, this battle suddenly makes itself awkward because there's lap traffic to get around there. That's Martin Brandborg that they'll all drive through, who graciously pulls out of the way. But ideally in this situation, Reed has got Kalastani and Martinez to work with, about 10 laps. Question is, what's the right play here? He's got to find a way through somehow.
Yeah, they're starting to hold each other up more than it's actually worth now, which is not really what they want to be doing. Especially last lap I was watching, because just behind Reed is Anthony Catt as well, so he's catching in slowly but surely, and still a fair distance behind, but catching nonetheless, because these guys are slowing each other up. They're starting to trip over each other. I did also notice that Adam Webb's gone to the stop.
Trying to go to the outside, doesn't quite manage it there. Kent Nielsen was trying to look every which way. Sorry to cut you off like that, Brad, but that was getting dicey, and it is still up the hill going towards turn 4. Oh, you thought maybe Kalashnikov had a brief chance, maybe 10% to get it done from there, but not able to do it. But back to your point.
Yeah, so no, that's way more important than I was talking about. That was very intense going through that first sector, but it was Adam Webb, who pitted earlier, has actually decided to take their softs. Now, if you're struggling to make half the race on mediums, I don't know if trying to make half the race on softs is a good idea, but I mean, I'm not racing. I haven't actually raced these cars yet, so what do I know? But I mean, it's a strategy, and I guess we'll have to see how it plays out.
Certainly will. I guess he's looking for a little bit of a undercut on some drivers who maybe have to pit late as they pick up damage. Kalashnikov again trying to line up an opportunity here. He's a little bit far back, but this is the sort of track. It's downhill in towards turn number 1. Use gravity with you. Had to search to the outside. Nielsen overshoots it, trying to defend. And all of a sudden, Kalashnikov's forced the mistake here. He'll have to go the long way around in towards turn number 2. A little bit of contact as they go through. Nielsen using all of the road to try and defend, but Kalashnikov's not done. If he gets a run through 3, he'll be side by side for 4. He's on the outside though, which is the difficult point. And there's contact over the front nose. Goes Kent Nielsen, and his race is done in the barriers.
Not sure if that was a bit of payback. We'll no doubt get a replay of that. But yeah, that contact in turn 3 really brought that up, and we'll see that net. Well, just before that was the contact, and I think Kalashnikov was like, well, you can give, you can take as well.
Well, you can look at this here. Where's he supposed to go? He's pushed right up to the white lines in the curb, and I wouldn't say there's any malice in that at all. I just think he gets squeezed out on the outside. Kent Nielsen's trying to be aggressive, and there's a reason why that section of the track is one line only. As you go through, you can see Kalashnikov, he makes the move, he's in the middle of the road. Kent wants to get a bit more, and by the time he looks to try and turn in for the corner, he just gets turned on the nose, because Kalashnikov has to be entitled to some space there on that outside, because he was legitimately going for a move. Either way, he's in 8th position right now, and Kent Nielsen is out.
Yeah, it's those sort of times where Kent Nielsen on the inside does have not so much the right of way, but he has the racing line on what is a very tight single file corner, but Kalashnikov was there, so one of them has to yield and yeah, just run out of room. There was maybe a millimeter extra on the outside that Kalashnikov could have taken, but his car was there. He doesn't have to. He left space on the inside, and people just get selfish and greedy, and then they lose.
That's sometimes how it happens. Battle continues though. 4th, 5th, 6th positions. Kalastani, Martinez and Reed. Reed has just been happy to sit here, patient, watching the 2 teammates here work their race out at the moment on lap 28 of 34 they go on to, so 7 laps to go, and here comes the move, straight down the inside from Martinez. Has he got it sorted on the exit? He will try and get as much as he can. Now the DRS will come to help, and he gets it sorted, but Kalastani's not giving up. He tries to search to the inside. It doesn't work, and now Jorge Martinez has it sorted, but again, that switchback up the hill. Have you got a chance? He'll have to lift out of it, and Jacob Reed was sniffing about for that position. If he's aggressive through 5, he might have a chance at the chicane. You know, he was tucked up under the gearbox looking for that chance, but he needed about another 50 meters if he was going to launch a salvo down the inside of Kalastani.
Yeah, there's a little bit more room through the chicane than there is at turn 4, but it's still very much single file. We've seen people try to go for moves there in sim and in the real world, and it never really works out, but he's still in prime position to use the DRS down the straight. If he can get a good exit out of turn 13 and more crucially 14, he'll be right there, save all the battery through that middle sector, and then hopefully Jorge Martinez is far enough in front that Kalastani doesn't get DRS, and he doesn't, so this is game on.
Absolutely, game on indeed. Kalastani's in trouble. Here comes Jacob Reed, straight down the inside. And is it going to be done at the exit? Not quite. Reed gets a little bit of a wiggle here as they fight towards turn 2. Again, it's Kalastani on the inside. Reed leaves all the room on that inside line. They're going to start merging as they now go to 3, 2 wide. They'll stay all the way to 4. Now it's about bravery. Who's going to be willing to yield as they go through? Oh, I thought there was no room at all. Jacob Reed around the outside of turn 4.
Oh, it's interesting to I'm wondering if Jacob Reed's listening to the broadcast. Oh, you can't go too wide through turn 4? Oh, let me show you how it's done. That was phenomenal. I thought that was going to end in disaster, but these are some of the best Formula races in the sim, so I'm not really surprised, but my God, I'm so excited to watch this replay.
Well, he has the number 4 at the end of his name for a reason, and that is because he's the 4th Jacob Reed in iRacing, not the fact that he can make passes like that at turn 4 of the Hungaroring. You can see a little wiggle coming out of 1, gave him not much to work with, didn't have the DRS to play with either going down through to turn 2. Now, you've got to be brave through 2 and into 3. Had to try and be aggressive there, and he left the room as well to make sure that Kalistani wasn't in any trouble. But here at turn 4, that is commitment. You have to have so much confidence on the driver on the inside. It's not going to be there to make that move. And Jacob Reed pulled it off. And it's so easy as well, by that point as well, Brad, to just absolutely skittle yourself on the outside. Speaking of someone who's been absolutely skittled, that's Lewis Holden's race done.
Yeah, I didn't manage to catch that, but that is a monster accident. We'll get the replay right. Yeah, he has. That was...
So, coming out of 12 is the place where it's happened here, so we're a little bit too far back for this one. It'll be a long, long way before we get to exactly how this one happened, but you can see he's locked up behind, I believe that is Motta out there, Northern Motta, who just lost the place actually to Cedric Beale. So Beale now up into 12th position, Motta there in 13th. You're going to come and see it here through turn number 12. This is why this track is so easy to find yourself in trouble. You can see he hits the brakes, goes through the right to 12. He just gets out on the AstroTurf here, puts the power on too early, massive tank slapper, and by that point, you know, the car's absolutely fried. The front's hanging off of it. You can see it just sitting down on that rear right, and that effectively was day done.
Yeah, it doesn't take much at all in these cars to do something like that. The AstroTurf is ridiculously slippery, and he nearly caught it twice, and then he just ran out of room and couldn't quite get that.
Battle still on though for 9th, as Jorge Montañez now has eyes on Ben Horrell, and another position just in front. They've got the traffic, of course, of Brandborg to just go by in the next couple of moments, but this is really about how do you find a way through in the final stages. We've got about 4 laps to go. If there was any time where the tyres were deciding that they don't want to play as a tyre anymore, it probably would be about now. And this is where on the mediums there's a big difference for on the hard, there's a big difference for Montañez here, who's got that opportunity to go and attack.
Yeah, lap traffic kind of going to play its factor as well, but that tyre advantage is everything in a series like this, especially at a track like this. Gaps half a second through the middle sector is not ideal, but still get the draft down the straight. Lap car pulling out of the way, I'm sure Ben Horrell's very thankful for that, but DRS is still in range for Montañez, so tyres don't really affect DRS, but it will help his cause into turn 1.
Certainly will. He's got the grip, he can put the power down earlier, he'll have a bit of an advantage in kilometres an hour to give him that run on the front stretch. Does he have a chance here to make this happen in towards 1? Not yet, he's not close enough, but this is the sort of track where if you can get a run out of 2, your race isn't over in terms of an overtake, but again, it's got about 2 car lengths, he's not close enough to make it happen. I do want to keep an eye though on Tom Volstra in 3rd position. He's had a really quiet race so far, but he's starting to fall backwards into the clutches of Jorge Martinez, who over the last 2 laps has taken 1.5 seconds out of him.
Yeah, Martinez is on an absolute flyer now that Kalistani is not so much of an issue. And it makes you wonder what would have happened if he was let through earlier, because yeah, that gap is shrinking quicker than I realised.
Lap 30 was his fastest lap of the race there for one Mr. Jorge Martinez. He did a 15.9 as he went through, so tells you all you need to know. Volstra lost another 0.4 of a second on that lap, but crucially that gap's still 2.6 seconds with 2 laps to go, so it depends on a tyre blowing out if this race wants to be altered in any way for the final step on the podium. But this battle still goes on right now. Montañez versus Ben Horrell for 9th and 10th positions as they run down into turn number 1. No dice once again.
Yeah, Montañez just can't get the run through the middle sector that he needs to get in there for turn 1 or turn 2, because even though he has the tyre advantage, they're nearly sort of running on pace because of like the stickiness of the tire versus the degradation of the tire. So he just doesn't quite have that pace advantage to get where he needs to in that middle sector.
Here's your race leader, Tamas Simon, out there on circuit. He leads this race by 7 seconds over Andreas Henkel. As you can see, they fight behind. That is Tamas Shane and Adam Webb for position as they try and work out if they've got anything left in the fight for 16th position. How sweet would that be? Soft versus old medium as they go through. But again, this is a tough scrap. Webb taking a big line around the outside, but that will drop him a whole heap of time. There as well is Gennady Kalashnikov, who has been one of your biggest movers in the field, and he is trying everything right now to make sure that he's got the gap he wants. It's a very lonely race for him as he's just done an 18. I reckon his tyre has started to just lift off. Here comes a chance, though, for Montañez. He'll have one more after this, but he knows he's got everything to play for on this final lap. He's got to have a look in towards turn number 2. If he wants to make this happen, he won't. Tamas Simon, though, will round the final corner. Sometimes he's a bit like Tiger Woods. It's him versus the field. Him versus the field. Tamas Simon gets it done again. Andreas Henkel will finish off in second on what is a fantastic drive from the German, despite the poor start. But crucially, for third, Tom Bolstra. Look how much he's dropped in the final couple of laps. But ultimately, he's just able to hold on.
Yeah,
he's just able to hold on.
Saved by the flag there. It was a very close gap. It was 0.8 of a second in the end, which was a massive, not so much fall from grace, but it was close. But yeah, it was very close for him in the final moments. But Horrell and Montañez is close, but just couldn't quite get that run through the middle sector that he needed.
No, couldn't quite, and Montañez will have to settle for that one. Tell you what, it's close between Beal and Veek as well for 11th position. We haven't talked much about Thomas Veek here in this race, but he's up 9 spots. That's a great race by him there. The Dane doing exactly what he needs to do to have a very solid finish, and Jacob Oberslack there getting quite close to the back of Northern Motta then to finish off what was a very important race out there. And I'll tell you what, that was massive in terms of the context of this one. Confirmation, though, of result. It is Tamas Simon who gets the job done and wins by 7.8 seconds over Andreas Henkel, with Tom Bolstra rounding out the final spot on the podium. It would be 4th position in the end for Jorge Martinez, who would maybe have wished that he'd have been allowed license to go through a little quicker than what he did from his teammate Matteo Calastani. Jacob Reed would go through. He'd finish 5th as Calastani's tyres would let go late on, and that's why he dropped back so dramatically in the latter stages, almost falling backwards into the clutches of Anthony Kat, who finished in 7th ahead of Gennady Kalashnikov, the Russian there in 8th position. Ben Horrell will finish in 9th place ahead of Jorge Montañez there in 10th, the first of the hard compound tyre runners here today. Down, though, in towards 11th position we go, and that is Thomas Veek with a very solid drive from him. He was up 9 places today in this race, along with Ben Horrell, but the biggest mover in the field would be Cedric Beal, up 11 spots, 23rd to 12th, and a very quiet and understated drive from the Frenchman here today. Northern Motta will finish off in 13th, along with Jacob Oberslack in 14th, and Jordan Johnson, who, on getting his damage, also had to serve one of iRacing's fabled drive-through penalties with the damage that he got. He managed to finish on the leading lap, though still 15th, exactly where he qualified the car. Tamas Shane was a lap down, along with Adam Webb, the only driver to switch over to the soft compound tyres, with Remy Garcia, Stefan Flasch, and Martin Brandborg 1 lap down in this one. A very hectic race up and down the order. A lot of retirements here, including Lewis Holden, Kent Nielsen in dramatic fashion. Danilo Sanfilippo can be added to that list as well. Turn 3 was a big killer today. Colin Bell's issues was on the outside of 2. And then on the opening laps, Oyvind Haugland, Jacob Swiderski, and dramatically from the race lead, the Austrian Oliver Stepanov in all sorts of trouble. And he definitely want that one back. He had the pace to go out there and win the race today. But it is a switch to where we go to 1 week from today, Brad, because the Hockenheimring comes into play. And if there is any track which is about turning braking, and that general philosophy of speed, you'd probably say that's the place. It's not quite the old circuit, but this new circuit, the first circuit designed ever by Herman Tilke, by the way, is still a really, really good track.
Yeah, it definitely is, and I'm going to exclude the Parabolica from this statement, but not very many like fast long corners like we've seen at Imola and here at Hungaroring, or even Barcelona the week before Imola. So a lot of sharp, fast entries and very tight exits. It's going to be a very different sort of race, but I'm very excited to see how that one plays out.
I'm just as excited as you are, Brad, and the only place you can catch that with the iRacing Grand Prix Series is with us at SimSpeed TV. If you haven't had the chance to already, you can like, you can share, you can subscribe, do what you must to show some incredible racing that happens time and time again. A massive thanks has to go to the iRacing Open Wheel community. They have done another wonder, bringing us some great racing here from the iRacing Grand Prix Series. And of course, to everyone who's got it done here, Jay Kennedy, who's been on the cameras for this one, Brad Wingard, who's been alongside me, my name, Jake Sperry, and it's Tamas Simon versus the field. When he gets in a rhythm, nobody is able to stop him, and he just has this uncanny ability of not only being able to drive fast, but to drive fast and save the tyres. It's almost an unfair combination, really, and that combination might only be exacerbated further 1 week from today at the Hungaroring. Simon's championship to lose right now. Catch him if you can, and we'll catch you 1 week from today.
This is fantastic. This is GT racing right now.
He's got traction. He's got everything outside of both of them. Maloney.
Oh, he's taking Anderson. Anderson's up top
Oh
here.
my God. Oh, big crash. Oh my goodness. Half the field's going to get rolled.
Second very close. These guys I want to make their way through the field very quickly. Oh, there we go.
Oh no.
That's massive. This is it. This is over. I can't believe this. Oh my God.
God, what?
Thank you.